Hello, friends. Uncle Marv here with another episode of the IT Business Podcast, the show for IT professionals and managed service providers where we help you run your business better, smarter, and faster. Today, we are rolling on with our PitchIT vendor interview profiles. I think we're about halfway through here, but you're listening to these in successive quick order as I release these day by day. And my guests are in the throes of their boot camp as they get ready to head to November and hopefully be one of the final three on the stage at IT Nation Connect. And continuing on, we have Find My IT Partner. And the person that will be joining me to chat about this is Jonathan Skofi, although we just call him Skofi. So Skofi, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Uncle Marv. It's a pleasure to be here. Yes, I'm Jonathan Skofi. My friends call me Skofi, and it's a sincere pleasure to hang out.
All right. So let me get the weird question out of the way. It's not really weird, but it's probably the one that you might get asked the most is, do we really need a website for people to find their IT partner?
Great question. Great question, Uncle Marv. So it's actually more than a website. And just a clarification, we definitely are in what I would call beta. But the future scope of what we're trying to build, Uncle Marv, and this is going to be a crude way to describe it, but it paints a picture real fast. So I'm going to do it anyways.
Okay.
But if you could imagine LinkedIn and Tinder having a baby that was really good with computers, and that is the ecosystem we are trying to build.
I think that's called Pornhub or something like that. It's not, appropriate for our thing.
Oh no, we went too far, Uncle Marv. No, no, it's I call it cyber matchmaking, and so in that sense, we reach out to SMBs and we attract SMBs through content and marketing and whatnot, and help them identify if they have a need for IT, cybersecurity, or compliance. And then rather than quote unquote lead generation, we want to get a deep understanding of what their needs are and then actually connect them to an IT provider that is qualified, that they can trust and have high confidence in, and introduce them to each other.
All right. So a vetted provider directory is kind of what I'm really hearing through all of that, correct?
That would be a way of saying it. The matchmaking component goes a lot deeper than just browsing for an MSP that's in your backyard.
Right. What makes a provider vetted?
That's a good question. So early on right now, as we are in beta, it's not what it needs to be, what it's going to become. So I'll start by saying what we do now, and then I'll share where the vision is.
Okay.
So right now we have 35 IT providers across the United States, coast to coast. And each one of those, before they were accepted into the program, I personally sit down with an interview, get an understanding of their ideal customer profile, the services they provide, their experience, et cetera, et cetera. And if you trust me, that's satisfactory. But as we grow and become a global economy of trust, which is kind of the goal, we're going to need to have certification tracks in place, demonstrations of competency, customer reviews, and those types of things. Additionally, other types of things to demonstrate what other qualifications might be relevant to your MSP, et cetera, et cetera. Because just because an IT provider says they can do a thing isn't necessarily always the case. And a step beyond that, it's important that we translate those qualifications to the end customer so that they can be connected with confidence.
So how much of Angie and Thumbtack is this going to be like?
It's only going to be like that in the sense that the mechanisms by which you can perhaps get in front of those providers may have a similar aesthetic or feel. But a critical difference between like an Angie's or a Thumbtack or something like that is that this is exclusive for managed IT providers, and that it is the matchmaking engine that we're building is going to be built off of a deep understanding of industry detail that those other places don't have. Additionally, so like an Angie's List and others, or like a Bark.com, if you will, They have kind of like a up for grabs system where you can be notified, as if you're like a service provider, you can be notified of a job or whatnot. And then you can bid on that job or you can spend dollars and that, but they sell it to multiple providers is one of the bigger differences. What we are less interested in is, giving the SMB the experience of having to talk to 25 IT providers before they make a decision. We want to make the claim that when we introduce you to your next provider, that's going to be a perfect match. Kind of like if you were like looking like old school, like relationship matchmaking, if you're looking for a spouse or a life partner or something like that, like what they used to do is like, they wouldn't like trot out 25 suitors in front of you. They're like, no, based on who you are and what we know, this is your future wife, your future husband, et cetera, et cetera. So we want to be able to kind of build on that trust factor here.
I'm sorry. I had a whole nother thought go through my head. I'll tell you what it was after the recording because we already went too far earlier. So let me ask this, because one of the things that, for new companies I like to ask, of course, is what was the inspiration for this? But really, it's going to be more of what was the gap missing in the market that you noticed?
Yeah. So just for some context, Marvin, before I started doing this, I had the privilege of running business development teams for more than a couple vendors in the IT services channel. And when I left that kind of corporate environment, MSPs started coming to me. They started reaching out to me saying, hey, Jonathan, we need help with lead generation, quote unquote. Can you help? And I was nervous. I said, I don't know. I don't think it's the same. You are typically the MSPs I was talking to are orders of magnitude smaller than the vendors I worked for, had less than half of the war chest, if you will, for going to market. And the nature of the products and services that MSPs and IT providers go to market with is vastly different. It's not like a widget or a gadget or pizzas or shoes or a SaaS product you can add to cart and check out. And here's the big kicker for me. If I were to take 10 MSPs and line them up against a wall and ask them, where did your last customer come from? What are 9 of them at least going to say, Marvin?
Put me on the spot like that.
Well, in my experience, they say word of mouth, right? They say a referral.
Yeah, but I'm no marketing Marv. So yeah, referrals are 80%, if not more, of my business.
Yeah, exactly. And that's okay to an extent, but it's not satisfying from the standpoint of like, I want to go out and proactively generate new sales opportunities for my business. And let me be clear, I think there's a way to cultivate future referrals and to farm referrals, if you will, and you should be. And I have a lot of thoughts on that. But there's a reason I believe a lot of IT providers have the experience of outsourcing different sales, marketing, or business development functions and seeing those dollars not return what they hoped they would and having less than ideal experiences. So this was never meant, what I'm doing now is not meant to be a replacement for your own business development or lead generation in your own MSP. It's meant to be a supplement. And one of the critical differences here is we're going to be measuring the success of what we do, not in clicks or impressions or downloads of a white paper or even appointments on your calendar, but rather in new customers and revenue.
Now, there's a part of this that sounds like something that a lot of marketing firms may be already helping with, where they're giving MSPs an area that is, exclusively their own. They'll do their lead gen stuff and drive everything to that MSP. So what types of things would an MSP, well, first of all, let me ask this. Is this something that an MSP would pay to be a part of?
It is. There's 3 components to it. There's a small monthly subscription to be considered an in-network partner. That's like your Costco membership. Congratulations, you're in the club. No one's betting the farm on that subscription, and I'm definitely not retiring on that subscription. And here's the part that is when you win is when we win. So when we find a qualified sales opportunity, and I don't call them leads because we go through very deep discovery before we distribute them to anybody. When we find a sales opportunity, we have a first right of refusal system. So if you're qualified to take the sales opportunity and you are the one who it needs to go to, you get to see a redacted discovery document with all of the details of the opportunity before you accept it or decline it. So I'll give you an example. On Monday, there was a 20-user banking institution, literally this Monday. We had conversations with their systems administrator and their information security officer, and they needed an IT provider to provide them with an Office 365 security assessment. So I sat down with them personally, hand curated all the discovery that I would need, went to the partner that got first right of refusal that I knew was qualified to take the opportunity, and he got to see it before I made the introduction. At that point, if he or she accepts the sales opportunity, they pay for exclusive rights to that mutual introduction. And it's literally an introduction where I get on the call with the end customer and my IT provider and facilitate that warm handoff. And like you just acknowledged, about 80% of customers in this market seem to come through word of mouth and referrals. So I'm trying to facsimilate at scale that idea of a warm handoff, a warm introduction. Additionally, when he goes on to close that deal that I brought to him on Monday, if it results in $1,000 in monthly recurring revenue or greater, then his monthly with me will get slightly adjusted by either $150 a month or $250 a month, depending on which tier he subscribed to. The idea behind that, you won, now we're winning. And it'll be the happiest vendor increase you ever got because you're crushing it.
All right. And how long does that monthly stipend go for?
As long as you're a client, as long as you're a paid member, I can anticipate your next question.
Go ahead.
What happens if that customer leaves, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things we're doing in beta, and one of the reasons we have a beta, is so that we can get our partners' feedback on what that policy should be. So I don't even actually know yet. And that's me being transparent as we're in beta.
Okay.
So the short answer right now is we'd work with you. If you lost the deal because of some legitimate reason, I want to work with my partner. I don't want it to be a punitive experience. If we did everything that we said we were going to do, theoretically, we would retain at least some of that revenue, but I don't have the policy in place yet. And if you're a new partner, you get to have a voice in what that policy will be.
All right. Well, the other half to that question, because you did get that part right. But what if after a year, I've signed up, I've gotten a bunch of deals, I'm good, I don't need any more. I'm all tapped out. I've even hired extra techs and stuff. I want to slow down. So I want to pause membership or I want to stop membership. I assume you're still going to want that monthly stipend to continue. Or when can I say enough's enough? I think I've given you enough money for 20 users over 3 years or something like that.
Well, first of all, we have not gotten to that point yet where any of our MSPs have said, please stop sending me sales opportunities that I can close. So that's not a thing that's happened yet. But if it ever did, I would want to sit down with that provider and understand why they're leaving. And, at the end of the day, the partnership is more important to me than the dollars. But I don't have that policy written in place either. That's another thing to be tackled in the beta.
All right. I grilled you enough there. Let's move on to something a little nicer and stuff.
Good grilling and very much appreciated.
So one of the things that you also get to do is talk to these companies that are looking for support. So a lot of times you might actually have to help them understand what they need. What comes across or stands out to you as, the most common question, or I was going to say even mistake that they get when they're looking for an IT partner?
That's an excellent question. And the answer to the first part is yes, that happens a lot where the customer thinks they need X, but they really need Y. And we get the opportunity to kind of guide them. Now, we try to guide them from the vantage point of we're not necessarily the technical resource. We're not the ones that are going to be doing any of this, but we've been around the block enough where we can look into our crystal ball and say, hey, you might want to think about it from a different perspective, whether it be what they're budgeting or the specifics of the services they think they need. And I'll give you one example. Last year, we had a conversation with the CIO of an engineering firm. And the way that came about was one of my people called that CIO, had a conversation, basically shared, well, we're a nationwide network of providers and we're here to help. And the first question out of that gentleman's mouth was, do you have any IT providers in Pittsburgh? And my guy said yes. And so we booked a meeting and I got to sit down with that CIO and had a conversation with him. Well, come to find out they have 3 locations. They were already working with a very large nationwide MSP, but was really functioning more as a VAR. The CIO had one part-time guy in Illinois at their headquarters, and they had another location in Knoxville, and they were working with a local break fix company. So whenever they needed boots on the ground in Knoxville, they had somebody there. The CIO and the part-time guy in Illinois, they took care of the local office there. But in Pittsburgh, the new office with 45 of their 140 users, they didn't have anyone. So they just were like, well, do you have an MSP that can come into the office when we need them to? And my answer to that was, I know I have a partner in Pittsburgh, but he's not really going to be interested in just being your guy you call. Tell me more about what you have going on with these providers. Well, come to find out, they were getting some of their licensing through this really large MSP, but no tier 1 support. And they had a whole other quote unquote MSSP that was managing their firewall separate from SentinelOne, which they were getting through this large MSP, which to me seemed really strange. And then they had this relationship with this IT company in Knoxville. And then there were other licensing things that I identified as well. So I came back and I said, listen, I have a guy I could introduce you to, but really what I'm hearing is you have a patchwork quilt of IT providers already. And as I've been asking you questions about compliance and you have government contracts that you're working, and you just admitted to me that ITAR and CMMC are in your very near future. And what I didn't say was actually they're right now on his doorstep today, but he kept saying they're coming down the line, but they're really right in front of his face. I said, I think it will be in your interest to consider consolidating all of these IT providers under one. So that you have one throat to choke, that understands compliance, can help you with the firewalls, can help you with your licensing, can help you with on-site support, wherever you might be. And you're probably going to consolidate a lot of your costs as well. Without going too deep into it, I would assume that you've got a significant IT spend across these 3 providers you just described to me. So I got to educate him, and it's like, if I basically put him on the spot, I said, if you have an appetite for consolidation and, maybe spending a little less money potentially, at the very least, making your management of this whole ecosystem way more straightforward, I would be happy to introduce you to my partner in Pittsburgh. But if you just need someone to plug in laptops and flip some switches and do stuff like that, I mean, you could go to Field Nation or, just hire a part-time guy from a local community college if you really need that. Yeah. And in that particular case, he was like, that was a really, really great point. And he did want me to go ahead and coordinate that introduction. So, and then the other answer to the other piece of your question, Marv, was compliance drives a lot of our conversations. It seems to be right now, not all of them, but when we get folks on the phone, especially, we've talked to nonprofits and about HIPAA. One specifically comes to mind where they were partnering with a local municipality, and they were being encouraged by this municipality to open like 3 more locations. But they said, in order to do that, you have to demonstrate HIPAA compliance before we're going to give you any money to do so. And so that was one. We've talked to several engineering and manufacturing companies that have government contracts, and like, the Air Force won't give us another dollar until we can prove that we're CMMC compliant. Is there someone that can help us get our house in order, et cetera, et cetera? There's a lot of nuance to those conversations, and we don't claim to be the ones who know it all, but we do the fact finding, go find the partner and introduce them to each other.
All right. Sounds good. Sounds like you do enough to make sure that the match works as directed. So, all right, Skofi, we're coming to the end here. So let me give you the opportunity that I've given all of the others, and I'll leave the runway open for you to practice your pitch for the first time in your boot camp experience. So I'm going to give you 2 to 3 minutes or as much time as you need. Go.
All right. So if you're an IT provider and you do any outsourced IT, cybersecurity, or compliance for your customers, you are uniquely different from almost any other industry where you don't sell pizzas or shoes or a SaaS product you can add to cart and check out. Your ability to sell is dependent on 2 camps. One would be technical acumen, which most of you crush. Most of you have high technical acumen. The other side is business acumen. This is understanding your customers, and this is knowing what their real needs, wants, and desires are, and where what you do overlaps with that. What findmyitpartner.com seeks to do is to build a bridge between the technical acumen that you have and the business acumen required to connect with your future customer in a non-hostile way where your customer can feel at ease, like there's no commission breath. They can sit down and share, let their hair down, and we can guide them through and introduce them to you. And then you get to run the sale the rest of the way down the field and build new customers and build new revenue in your MSP. So go to findmyitpartner.com and get an interview with me to join the beta and match with your next customer on Skofi.
All right. Very good. Thank you very much for that, Jonathan.
My pleasure.
All right, folks, there you have it. Jonathan Schofield from Find My IT Partner, your vetted provider directory with a curated list of IT service providers, managed service providers to be matched up with local businesses as needed. And they'll take care of a lot of that stuff for you and get you off of the referral train that so many of us are on. So, Jonathan, look forward to seeing you hopefully on stage in Orlando in November. And I'll ask you the same question I've also asked others. I know you want that top money prize, $70,000 for first, $30,000 for second. But if you get on stage and you get stuck with the steak knives, are you going to be okay with that?
Everybody can use a nice set of steak knives. I don't enter a competition to get third place. I know that there's some really incredible folks I'm competing against, and I have a lot of respect for the entrepreneurs that are in PitchIT. But I'd be thrilled to be on stage in any capacity. If I get to spread what we're doing and make some friends along the way, it'll be worth it.
All right, that'll be good. Hopefully we'll see you there. That's going to do it, folks, for this vendor profile of IT Nation's PitchIT. Of course, tomorrow you'll hear another one, and we will continue on the road to Orlando. And hopefully we'll see you there at IT Nation Connect. Jonathan, we'll see you there. And to everyone else out there, thanks for listening. See you soon. And until next time, holla.